Welcome back to The Reflective Parent, where we approach parenting with curiosity and where we interrupt disruptive patterns that are keeping you from deepening your familial relationships. Parenting is challenging, and you don't have to do it alone. I'm your host, parent coach Jason Denham, and each week we work on loading up your communication toolbox with solutions for deepening your familial relationships, keeping you calm in conflict, and healing your heart when your best efforts fall short. So take a deep breath, and let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Reflective Parent Podcast. In this episode today, we're going to be talking about identifying and then regulating some of the triggering things that happen when engaging with a teen or tween that is pushing back, maybe refusing to do the thing that we have on the schedule, the thing that is pressing for time, that makes us want to pull out our hair and get a little louder and maybe even get really big with our bodies. Lots of hand motion, perhaps body language that suggests our frustration. So today I want to dive into experiencing those things, honoring those things, then taking a look at how it is that you can pull back, that you can dial back and find a little bit more peace and calm to come back and try again. So as I mentioned in my previous episode, I'm a student of yoga, meditation, and Hakomi method, the mindfulness somatic practice that I use as a part of your toolkit so that you can start to show up your best self even when the conversation gets started off on the wrong foot. So let's talk about something that's pretty real for a lot of us. Quite a few people don't want to enter into conflict in this world. And I bet several of them live in your house. Maybe it's you. The idea of going towards a difficult conversation sometimes starts something within us that actually affects the way that we show up in the first place. If in your mind you're already thinking, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this, and it's all going to end up bad. You know what? In my experience, kind of does sometimes. That self-fulfilling prophecy that we can create for ourselves is one that we have to do some work around. And there are a few signs that I want you to look out for so that you know for sure. Okay, maybe you won't know always for sure, but you'll have a better idea for how you're going to show up. That first one that I mentioned is already there, right? Is what is my inner monologue? What's my dialogue? I don't know about you guys, but in my past, I could have a pretty negative inner voice, one that says this isn't going to work and you can't do this. I've got to do a little bit of work with that inner voice. And you know what? I tried to chase it off for a long time. I tried to eradicate it, cut it off, anything you can think of, until I actually started to accept, okay, this is the way that my brain likes to think. And I've got to actually do some work to go, hey, you know what? Let's pretend like this is going to be easy. And no matter what happens, you know what? I think this will work out. Because you know what, everybody? It usually does. When we go toward conflict, yeah, it's really challenging. We can feel it in our bodies. We can feel it in our stress levels. And for the most part, it does. It works out okay. Even if there's yelling, even if there's doors slamming, even if the drywall suffers, for those of you with boys. And we can figure out what to do next for just about anything. So maybe we don't have to place so much importance on this kind of working out perfectly, whatever in the heck that means, right? I think most of us understand that there is no perfect. Nevertheless, quite a lot of us strive for something close to it, right? That's where I want to draw your attention to this phrase that I like to think of. Don't get married to the outcome. If what you're thinking is I've got to make this thing happen and it has to go off without a hitch, we're probably going to get let down, especially with tweens and teens. They tend to explore pushing boundaries. They tend to fear the unknown in a way that all of us can relate. But so much more is unknown, isn't it? We typically have a lot more experience as adults and know that things are going to be all right in a lot of scenarios. When we can remember not to get married to that outcome, then we have this flexibility of being a little bit like a tree blowing in the wind, right? And we can start to be more curious than trying to get our kiddos to do what we want. We can start to ask them questions like, how come you feel like you don't want to do A, B, or C? What's happening inside you right now? Those are the things we're trying to get to. And I bet you know from experience, it's really challenging to do that when your nervous system is going, wee, red flags, we're not going to get the thing we want. And that starts the domino effect of, I'm not going to get to a certain appointment on time. This might threaten my financial security. Don't they know anything about this? No, they don't. And they're not in a developmental place to know about it. So if you feel like telling them what this all means, it may be falling on the kinds of nervous system that cannot hold those ideas, those truths. And that's more about, say, if I'm saying that to a kiddo, it's more about me, isn't it? It's more about what I'm trying to manage. So in these instances where that voice becomes really prominent, it is a cue for you to go, I'm probably heading towards overwhelm and I need to step away. Now, here's another one for that. Ever notice when something happens, it's a little embarrassing, we get flushed red, right? And along with that comes maybe that little bit of tackiness, that little bit of sweat on the brow. Maybe we notice that our temperature is rising or our heart rate might be going up. How many of us have been like, palpitations? I got palpitations here. When those things are happening, our really, really intelligent body is trying to tell us, you're not taking in information right now, and you're probably not disseminating really solid, awesome information either. So noticing that tackiness, noticing that spike in the nervous system is a great indicator for you to take a few minutes, even if that means you're going to be late, even if that means that it feels like the outcome's slipping away. Remember, we don't want to get married to that outcome. If we think about the long game here, whatever it is that we're able to teach our kiddos and they can learn today might mean that we don't have this same scenario happening day after day because we were able to teach something. So sometimes your schedule is going to suffer. If we can be teachable in these moments, that's everything. So we've got the mind and we've got the body, both indicating to us, hey, I might not be showing up quite with the right energy right now. So where do you go and what do you do? There's a really great example of what meditation uses. It's a really difficult practice to go every day, sit and be still, and focus on your breath. So when we do that, we try to pick a place in the house that, or maybe even outside of the house, that you associate with ease and more peace. So if there is a place that you can go to that's just kind of yours, or it feels like it's yours, could even be like your corner of the shower in the bathroom. Doesn't matter where it is, as long as it feels okay inside you to be in that space. Maybe you can get some privacy there. Maybe you can get some quiet there. Maybe there's something of a sound that's good. If you've got a fountain or a fan, say you can flip a switch and turn that on and kind of drown out the other sounds. Whatever it is that you can create that's just for you in that moment so that you can focus in on how am I feeling right now? Am I overwhelmed by this exchange I'm having with my kids, with my partner, with another extended family member? What else is happening in my world? How can I come into my body right now and just come into this peaceful space? I almost think of it as like a little clearing in the woods where I can just sit down for a moment and be. And you know what? Whatever emotion might be there waiting for me, I don't make it wrong. I don't make it something that I need to turn away from, but rather just to be with it. Sometimes it's extreme frustration, it's anger, and maybe underneath of that might be a little loneliness, might be sadness, might be fear. Those harder things to take a look at. But if I'm with those feelings, sometimes that vibration that's in the body tends to slow down and cease. When we can go through that emotion, we can get out of that state of overwhelm. Now, is there a time frame for that? Yes and no. Sometimes it's a little bit of time, and it can be about as long as this. And we're reset. Sometimes it's longer. Could be 2 minutes, could be 5 minutes, could be as many as 30. And for some of the greater things that require more engagement and more people, it could be days. But if we can get the feeling back down to a nice foundation, then these things become bite-sized and manageable. I can break this down and I can work on this. So never underestimate the power of the breath. It is something that will help us tremendously in a moment to almost take a step back in our mind's eye and go, what's happening right now? Am I frustrated about something else? And now it's coming out a little sideways with my kiddo who might be able to sense it and then is behaving as some kind of way due to sensing that. So I can go into a little bit more about the nervous system. Are you ready? Here we go. Here's something really amazing. How many of you have ever noticed you could be working on something? Let's say you're in the kitchen and you're cutting up vegetables. You're doing something, getting ready for the next wave of people coming home. And someone walks through the door and your shoulders creep up. The hair stands up on your back of your neck for a moment. You don't even know who it is yet. And you turn around and you want to say, what's going on with you? Then you see their face. And it's a grim expression. What is that? That is a sophisticated piece of our nervous system that, if you think about the spidey sense, my dad's out there who like the comic book heroes, right? That is a piece of us that is reaching out and looking for danger. And if somebody's nervous system is pretty messed up or has been going through the ringer that day, we can sense those things. So if your kiddo is showing up behind you, had a bad day at school, and you can feel it before they even get in there, does it stand to reason that we, the adults, might show up the exact same way? Because maybe that performance review we're starting to notice doesn't seem to matter much. And maybe there's something that's going on with our own parents that's got us a little flustered. Maybe there's a disagreement happening between our partners. That can come in the room with us. It can get us pretty twisted up. Sometimes we're seeking control in those moments because we feel like we don't have any. And we're going to see the people around us do like what I was talking about at the counter. We're going to protect the neck, right? We're going to start to close up, close off. It's going to probably break down communication. If we notice these things within ourselves, then we can say, hey, you know what? I like to say this one to my wife. I think I've got all my pairs of cranky pants on today. And I've got to pay attention to that. I'm going to try to give some grace and some space to those around me while I figure out what's going on with me. Now is the time that's probably a good idea to check in with what's going on with the voice in my head. What kind of stories am I telling myself? And maybe it's time to go and take a look at that space that I talked about. Where's that calm, collected space that I can go sit in and I can kind of get to the bottom of what's happening with me. When I do those things, it may not be terribly obvious what the issue is, but it's a start. Sometimes, without having fixed or solved anything, I'm in a better, more balanced place to return to the conversation and say, I don't know what that was, but I'm back now. And here's what's going to happen next. Maybe it is even, what would you like to have happen next? Hey, I hope you're getting all the benefits from today's episode, and we'll get back to it in just a few moments. I just wanted to take this opportunity to offer you additional support. I know what a struggle it can be with all these changes in your teens, and it's hard to stay consistent, draw boundaries, and keep up with the ever-changing techie landscape. Sometimes you just need support from an outside perspective. For example, individualized advice from an expert raising teens for almost 2 decades. In one single hour session, I can help you get clarity on your parenting style, consistency, and just about anything else you and your family are struggling with. All you got to do is go to www.awakenshadow.com or click the link in the episode description to book your call with me. I'm here for you. All right, let's get back to today's episode. So, teaming with this idea, this notion that the nervous system might affect others, sometimes when your family members come home and that nervous system is affecting you, I find that it can be very, very useful to name it and to say, hey, I feel like all of our energies are a little off right now. What can we do to go take care of ourselves? This is where I like to bring in the acronym HALT. Got your pens ready? Hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. With this, we can actually address some of the things that might be happening for us and for our loved ones before we get into the nitty-gritty of a potential, I don't want to just say conflict, but maybe a difficult conversation. One where we're teaching something and it's going to be kind of challenging for the other to hear it or pick it up. So if we're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, the first thing that we can do is something nurturing. Can I get you some water? How would you like a piece of fruit? I got some apples today. And maybe it's, have you felt like I haven't been showing up lately and you haven't been seen? Maybe they'll tell you it's something to do with their relationships at school as they're becoming more complicated and always bamboozled by hormones. They may not want to talk about that thing right away, but to be able to name it, to be able to get them to at least kind of go up into their minds to think about it for a second, go, I don't want to talk about it. That's good. That's okay. Then go back to nurturing and be like, what would you like to do that would feel really restful? Maybe you got an idea that they should be doing homework immediately. Could that take a back seat? And you do something really easy that they love to do together. What is that? And remember to ask them. Perhaps that can be a way to make meaning out of this exchange. I would caution you to letting them do screens, because the screens are a wonderful way for them to get a dopaminergic hit, but they're just frying their receptors, really distracting from what is real for them in that moment. Same with us. If we're scrolling, even if we're in our nice little meditation spot, are we really focusing in on what's happening internally? So if you're doing something with them and you're getting them moving, then perhaps it'll grease the wheels for them to speak. Now, the schedule might have had been sacrificed for all of this. However, you might have deepened your connection by being able to own cranky pants within self and to identify what's happening for you. You might have also been able to acknowledge what's happening for them by helping them to articulate it. Often, I find that if we're helping our kiddos move their bodies, literally, maybe it's playing catch, maybe it's skipping rope, maybe it's doing crafts together, any of those things, it can really help them to feel less intimidated by me getting a little too intense, which I tend to be, and getting right up in their business. And then instead we're working on something else and the words start to come. I like to talk about the bump and shove in the kitchen. When my boys come back from a hard day and the house always needs tending to, doesn't it? Offering them something to eat. And if they don't want that, I might offer them one of these dirty dishes. And they'll say, I don't want to do that. And I'll be like, oh, well then how about you take this broom and sweep the floor? I'll do the dishes. That teaming of a task and that accomplishing can be really powerful. And I didn't mean to make it sound like it's just the boys. That was a scenario where there were only boys in my house, but it works tremendously well also with everyone else because humans love to help, don't we? And that's where you can also tailor a question from something like, you need to blankety blank, blank, blank. Instead of that, which can be really oppositional, hey, can you help me do blankety blank, blank, blank? Often, you might see somebody start to reach like, yeah, I'll help you. And then even the teenager might even go, no, I don't want to do that. It's part of the dance. But just because that little bit was there, then you can set a time frame and you might say, all right, how about after a couple of minutes of you just kind of settling in and landing, then you help me with this and maybe I can help you with something. What would that be? If we've got bigger fish to fry, I believe your kids will let you know. And you've been there before. You'll be there again. So we've got that mind, we've got that body, the way that it affects us and the way that it might affect our family members, how we might navigate that a little bit better by engaging them through curiosity rather than orders. And if we make our best effort not to assume that we know what's happening for them, that is a huge advantage for you. If you're already in your head thinking about your kiddo being late to things, not completing their homework, that they don't respect you, that's a big one. You might show up encouraging them to continue the same patterns that they were exhibiting since the last time that you might have seen them. And maybe this is, in the evening after school. So if we can try to wipe the slate clean when we're apart and try again, start over, that can really make a difference. And your kiddo might be coming home thinking they're going to get the riot act from you, or that you're going to show up with your unbalanced nervous system and start with loud voices or accusations. Imagine their surprise. If you show up calm, cool, collected, you're able to communicate what might be happening for you without going into too much adult detail. You know what I mean? Just sticking with, hey, I'm a little tired today, and I don't know if my patience is where it usually is. And I hope that you understand that doesn't have anything to do with you and everything to do with me needing to take care of myself. We could even go so far as to say, can you help me remember to knock it off a little bit earlier tonight? Because humans love to help. Now, that is how you demonstrate what it is you'd like to see in your kiddos. Will they do it right away? Most likely no. This is going to require quite a bit of repetition. But hey, it's great practice for you and your nervous system. It's great practice for you and your brain, for you and your body. Each of these things that I've outlined to you is a manner in which that you can heal. Don't you deserve that? Now, we can go deeper into some of these places because I bet some of you have some stories and have some experiences that are really challenging and might be difficult to manage. Some of those things might be affecting how you show up in your relationships and in maybe most of them. And that's something we can talk about if we decide to work together on a one-to-one capacity. We can help you explore those things and maybe remove some of the barriers to that curiosity that I'm talking about, to those curious questions, to letting go of some of the stuff that's been potentially going on inside you for a long, long time. We do recover. We do heal. We do grow. Even in some of our darkest hours. It's true. We can. When those things are managed and healed within us, everyone around us can benefit, but especially your children who think the world of you. And I know that can be hard to hear sometimes when they're challenging you at every turn, but it's true. They want you in their lives. They want you a certain kind of way, and they may not get it. But there are some acceptable ways that they're asking you to show up. What do you suppose those are? Could it be some of those things like what I mentioned earlier in HALT? To give them some nourishment. Whether that's physically by feeding them or emotionally by being with them, by listening to them. Sometimes you have to listen to some pretty terrible ideas and some commentary on some things you don't understand or even care about. But how special was that? Or would that have been for you from anyone that you looked up to in your life? It doesn't have to just be your parents. Not all of us have those. Maybe it was somebody that you really connected with who is like a mentor, a really good friend. Maybe it's a sibling. Maybe it was a grandparent or even a boss. When we're heard, it can feel rooting, like we're solid, like we've got a good foundation. If we can remember that, even in the moments when we're tired, what a gift that can be for our kiddos. So, find your way to your meditation spot. Spend a few minutes there when you're coming home frazzled from traffic, frazzled from the daily grind, and any of the myriad of other things that are a struggle in your day-to-day life. And get in here with you. Notice when there's tightness in the body. And if there's tightness in the body, it might do real great wonders to put your hands on that tightness. Maybe it's the shoulders or the neck. But just to hold it for a moment. To be gentle with you. In a way, it's you being seen by you. If it's in your head, hold it. If it's in your temples, right? We know how to do these things. These tend to look like stress things. What if, because we're doing them, it's actually meant to be relief? But often we're still in the race. Sitting in your medicine spot, this could be so much better. Breathing and letting your family know that, hey, when I'm in the spot, I need a couple of minutes. Can you help me get those couple of minutes? The proof will be in the pudding. When you come out of there after a little while, your family's going to see the difference. Oh, wow, you're so much more balanced when you get that. They'll start to give you that space and that grace. Some of them might start to want to do it too. That demonstration can be a really powerful introduction to how your entire family dynamic works. So what I'm talking about when I say coming home, finding your way to your meditation state, is a transition. Some of us, and especially those of us with ADHD or neurodiversity, we struggle with transition in a pretty big way. So that's why if your kiddo is still sitting in the car for a few minutes after you've already gotten out and you're trying to get on to the next thing, it could be really nourishing for them to spend that time sitting there for a few minutes and then coming into the house. So we want to think about what are some of these patterns that it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me that my kiddo does. Is that actually something that helps them? And once again, approaching from the place of curiosity. Hey, what's that do for you? They may not know. Help them to articulate it. Through that process, you may start to understand your own behaviors too. Well, what do I do that actually helps me a bit? So I can tell you this funny little story. My wife does not understand at all why I will sit in the car sometimes. And you guys, it is my happy place. I can sit in the car in the driveway for 30 minutes, just handling some tasks that are kind of challenging for my executive functioning. I can sit there and organize my whole day for some reason. I just love it. I can mess with the radio and put on some songs with no words, and I can climate control that thing really easy. And almost nobody comes and says anything to me when I'm sitting there. It's great. You may have something like that. It might not be the car. It might be something else. It might be going on a run. It might be that there's this little bit of time that you can carve out for yourself that's just right for you. It is really important to identify those things and honor them and ask that your family, that your friends, whomever, honor that space for you. When we put together these little chunks of time that are satiating for our nervous system, they really add up. They don't seem like they're much. And we might think, oh, I've got to have this whole hour to do a thing. And that can be true. Nevertheless, if you can't get that whole hour, because our lives are quite busy, but you can get a few minutes here and there, it still accumulates. It still matters. And it matters to your whole body. If you can show up the best way that you know how, why wouldn't you want to do that for yourself? If you could be a little kinder to yourself in here with your stories, why would you hold yourself back from that? I've got my reasons. And it does take some work. But we can flip the script on some of those things that we say up here. We can come into our bodies and start to identify them to the point where just a little something is off, and it might not be much of anything, but it's enough for us to go up. I need to go take care of me for a minute. And you know what, y'all? That ain't selfish. Not at all. Not at all. If it means that we show up and we are a participating member of our family dynamic in a way that really, really invites everyone to come be closer and to deepen with us. I have a feeling most of us want that depth of connection also. When we can't get it, sometimes we push people away, don't we? Sometimes we get bristly and we get loud and we get mean. But that isn't the truth, is it? if we can, be courageously vulnerable by doing some of the things that I talked about today. Naming when things are hard. Naming when we're not feeling quite right. And then creating the space to take care of ourselves. Transformation can occur. When we demonstrate these things, our children see it. Our partners see it. After a while, if it's working for you, they might want it. And they might come to you to ask you to teach it. Funny thing is, while you're demonstrating it, you are teaching it. You're laying a foundation. You didn't even have to do much. You just took care of you first. That could be way more manageable than trying to change everybody else. Yes? Now, because I'm a truth teller, I will say this too. If your inner space is a really challenging place to be, like mine used to be, I could understand that it might be really difficult to go in and to work on you. And it might seem like it's more manageable to control everyone else. I promise that is not the path to a deeper connection. In those cases, I would suggest working with a therapist. If you've got some trauma in that history, going towards that and working on the healing process is going to be downright terrifying for some of us. However, it is the way out. And with a professional, they're going to take care of you. They're going to take care of you in a way that will make it manageable. And if you show back up to the family with some of that healing going on, they will know that there's nothing we can't do together. This is our family. Sometimes we have struggles and we know how to manage them, and we manage them together through awareness of each other, through taking time and taking space to heal and prioritizing that healing so that we can grow and we can learn together, and that our family overcomes obstacles together. The road is not always smooth, but it is one that provides for us the kind of struggle and the kind of resistance that makes us strong. We need opposition to build that strength. Without it, we don't get that growth that we're looking for. Remember that in the moments when things are hard, and see if you can smile a little bit. Oh, I guess I'm learning a lesson. It's okay. If it's upsetting, it's okay if you're angry. It's okay if you make a mess of a conversation. We can always circle back. If you hit your meditation spot, pay attention to your body, your emotions. Talk about the things that are present without blaming others, and owning what you can for what you brought to the conversation. That's how everyone learns to communicate more effectively, and your family can deepen to get that kind of love that you're all looking for. Thanks for stopping by today. I appreciate you, and I'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to The Reflective Parent. If you know a parent that would benefit from this episode, please send it to them. And if you love this show, it would mean the world to me if you would go to Apple Podcasts and leave me a rating and review. And I'll see you next week.